Dominance is never linear. We think we understand Mathieu van der Poel's dominance, but the most important world championships of his career are the ones he didn't win. We remember the rainbow jerseys. We forget the moments where everything almost broke. When we talk about dominance, we usually talk about winning. Titles, records, control. But real dominance is never a straight line, because those losses reveal something deeper. How elite athletes learn, how decisions are made under pressure, and when even dominance has limits. This isn't a recap of World Championship Cyclocross. It's an analysis of why the races Mathieu didn't win matter more than we think. The losses. From the outside, the story looks simple. 3 years, 3 World Championships, 3 wins for Wout van Aert. 2016, 2017, 2018. But simplicity is usually what hides the truth. Because these races weren't decided by luck. They were decided by timing, by course design, and by choices long before the start line. Mathieu van der Poel wasn't worse. He was earlier in his development, earlier in his physical peak, earlier in taking certain risks. At that moment, cyclocross demanded control. Wout van Aert had it. Mathieu was still building it.
I have to say I feel the strongest of the pack, but I prefer to wait for the final, and then that was the incident with Mathieu, but I really have to thank him because afterwards I came in my rhythm.
The stakes weren't just a jersey. They were about what kind of rider you choose to become. Do you race to survive the course, or do you race to bend it? In these years, Wout shows efficiency. Mathieu shows expression. And sometimes, expression costs you titles. These weren't defeats. They were stress tests. Tests of patience. Tests of timing. Tests of how much chaos a rider is willing to carry before it turns into control. And what these years really measured wasn't who was better, but who was ready right then. The emotional cost. There's a moment almost everyone skipped. No finish line, no result sheet, no headline. But this reaction after the Worlds explains more than any statistic ever could. Because this isn't about losing a race, this is about what it costs to keep believing when winning doesn't come. Let's listen together.
De tranen en de ontgoocheling is zo groot omdat je beseft, fysiek was ik klaar om wereldkampioen te worden.
Ja, vooral dat. Het is helemaal niet leuk om nog pech een wedstrijd te verliezen. En ik denk dat dit voor mij wel de grootste ontgoocheling is tot nu toe.
Ik denk dat we wisten als we ons niveau hadden dat we de betere zijn, dat weten we allebei.
Dit gaat natuurlijk wel even blijven hangen bij mij ook. Ik ben iemand die daar wel snel mee kan omgaan, maar op zo'n manier een WK te verliezen is toch wel iets wat bij mij ook een impact heeft.
This wasn't frustration. This was recognition. The realization that talent alone isn't enough. That effort doesn't guarantee timing. And timing doesn't obey ambition. It's the moment where confidence cracks just enough to let doubt in. And paradoxically, that's where real growth begins.
Hij rijdt rond, hij ademt niet, hij rijdt gewoon rond. Hij is uitzonderlijk goed.
Ja, als je zo geklopt bent, dan ben je op waarde geklopt. En ik heb dat al vaker aangegeven, op waarde kloppen, daar kan ik wel mee leven.
The shift and turning point. After 2018, something changed. Not in his legs, but in the way he thought about racing. Before, races were opportunities. After, they became calculations. He stopped asking whether he could win and started asking what could make him lose. Because at the highest level, talent isn't the limiter. Exposure is. Every start now had to justify its cost. Not just physically, but strategically. Which risks are worth taking? Which ones only feel heroic in hindsight? Races weren't chosen because they were exciting. They were chosen because they were controllable. Calendars got shorter. Not to race less, but to arrive sharper, clearer and harder to disrupt. Peaks became intentional. No more drifting into form. No more let's see how it goes. Positioning wasn't about aggression anymore. It was about insulation. The front wasn't a place to attack from. It was a place to avoid mistakes. Starts became insurance. Lines became rehearsed. Margins got smaller, but safer. This wasn't caution. It was precision. Risk didn't disappear. It was redesigned. From that point on, Mathieu didn't just race to win, he raced to remove uncertainty. Not by dominating harder, but by making domination inevitable. He didn't try to beat chaos, he made chaos irrelevant. And once you do that, winning stops being a moment. It becomes a system. Why these losses matter today? The easy story is that dominance comes from winning, but in reality it comes from limits. Without those world championships he didn't win, there is no version of Mathieu van der Poel we see today. No controlled calendar, no selective peaks, no dominance that looks effortless instead of explosive. Those losses defined his ceiling by showing him exactly where it was. They forced choices, they demanded patience. They removed the illusion that talent alone was enough. And once that illusion disappeared, everything else became deliberate. The dominance that followed wasn't accidental. It was built on what didn't work. Which is why these losses still matter now. Because records don't just happen at the peak of ability. They happen at the peak of understanding. An 8th world title, Cyclocross wouldn't just be another win. It would be the final proof that nothing was left unanswered. And maybe that's why this question even exists. Not can he keep winning, but when is the right moment to stop? Because walking away at the top isn't about power, it's about timing. The World Championships Mathieu didn't win are the reason he might stop on top. Conclusion: we didn't misunderstand his losses. We underestimated their value. Sometimes what defines a champion isn't the races they won, but the ones that changed how they think. How do you look back on Mathieu van der Poel's dominance in cyclocross and his 3 lost world titles? And do you think he might retire at his peak after a record 8 world title soon? Let us know in the comments. Finally, we also want to thank you for the great interaction and comments on our previous video, the problem nobody wants to talk about in cyclocross. It was good to see that you all understand that Mathieu van der Poel isn't the problem at all, and we should enjoy watching him turn cyclocross into an art. But the sport of cyclocross increasingly needs to prepare for a definitive transition to more hybrid riders to remain relevant in the field of cycling. So, thanks for watching and stay tuned at Cycling for Cycling, the stats.